Mr. Lord Sandhurst on his maiden speech and say we're glad to welcome him to this House. My Lords, with so many words in this wedge of a bill, it's easy to forget that we're actually talking of people. As someone said earlier, real people, and the potential consequences for real lives. There's a huge responsibility, therefore, to get these details right, both for the police but also for the public, and Baroness Chakrabarti is right. So there needs to be deep scrutiny here in this House. An example of the wide range of this bill and the important but almost impossible nature of covering all of its detail is that although my noble friend, the Right Reverend Prelate, the Bishop of St Albans, is unable to attend today's proceedings, he's asked me to relay his intentions to amend the bill at committee stage to strengthen the police's ability to deal with the issue of hair coursing. That is something to look forward to. My main point, and you might expect me to spot and to say this, but there is an absence of almost any reference to the work of faith communities in several key areas in the bill. Despite the differences between different faith bodies, this huge army of volunteers are present and active in nearly all communities. One good example is in Part 2 of the bill, Chapter 1, where there's a consultation on plans to prevent and reduce serious violence, and consultation with education, prison and youth custody authorities. No mention of the faith communities who have a particularly good local source of knowledge and experience on the ground. Again, in Chapter 2 of that part, in the homicide review, the faith sector may have intimately been involved in issues leading up to that event, but will almost definitely have been caught up in the support and care for family members thereafter when they conduct a funeral or other bereavement care. And the same point applies to the need for reference to the faith community regarding rehabilitation of offenders, the referral of offenders, the remand of young people, and the management of sex offenders. Massive investment is made by all faith communities and specific charities in serving the people most affected by this bill, and that ought to be recognised and included, and that was referred to by Lord Rooker. Two different points on Part 4 in support of Baroness Whittaker. I cannot see why it's necessary to include Section 60.23 and the mention of those residing on land not on their own, not returning for 12 months. That implies that they could return in 12 months. That clause should be removed. And then Section 63 needs to include a reassurance that if the court required the forfeit of a vehicle and possessions, that people and families who live in those homes are not losing their home. This aspect of the bill should not remove the homes of the traveller and roamer community, simply ensure they are on land appropriate for their use. And then just finally, 3 questions on Part 1 in support of Lord Davis of Gower. I support the idea of a police covenant report on the well-being of our much valued police force. But has the Secretary of State got the resources to gather the material each year? And isn't an annual report far too frequent? If it's annual, it will be a permanent rolling piece of work. As soon as one report is finished, he'll have to start the next. And is it possible to compare our unique police force with other professional bodies and use that comparison as a criteria for assessment? There must be a better way of assessing the information. And ought there not to be a call for more than a report? We're so good at producing piles of paper that get received and approved, but then lead to little action. I would include a requirement in this report prescribed by the bill on the Secretary of State to produce a series of recommendations that improve the conditions and well-being of the police and their families. We need to do more than simply know how they are.